Hey guys, Tim Ford here, and I wanted to talk today about GoPro footage that's been shot with high frame rates and how to slow it down using both GoPro Studio 2.5 as well as Adobe Premiere Pro CC. And we'll start with GoPro Studio. GoPro Studio is free. Of course, free is good. And it's got some quirky things to it, but overall, it's pretty cool. So let's take a look at how this thing works. We are in GoPro Studio, which you can grab from GoPro's website. Like I said, it is free. And the way it works is you have these kind of, you have a sort of tabbed interface up here. With step one being to import a new file and then viewing and trimming that new file. So let's go ahead and bring in a new file. This is footage I shot with the GoPro Hero 3 Black. And I shot it at 240 frames per second. So that's a lot of frames, that's a high frame rate, and I'll show you how to go ahead and slow this down. So let's bring this footage in. Alright, so it's in. Now, this is footage I shot of a car, a remote control car, and I took a pile of snow, and I ran the back tires of the car through the snow so the snow would kind of fly around and we get some cool looking slow motion stuff going on. Let's go ahead and play it. You get the idea. So what you're going to do in this step is you're going to trim the video to the portions you want to use when you're editing. All right, so it's kind of interesting how this thing works. You have to mark your ins, mark your outs, then convert the file, and then from there do further edits. It's kind of this weird modular thing that happens in this software. So let's go ahead and we'll pick out some good footage here of snow flying around. So let's say maybe from, maybe right there, we're marking in, and I get some good flying snow happening. Yeah, that's nice. That's probably good. Alright, so you marked her in, you marked her out, and what you do now is you add this clip to the conversion list. Okay, now it's in your conversion list, and it's ready to be converted. It's 11 seconds long. And before you convert it, before you just say convert, you need to make sure your settings are where you want them. So let's go down to the advanced settings and make sure this is the image settings we want to work with. The first thing, frame rate. Well, actually, first thing is image size. We'll keep that at the default, which is 848 by 480. We will keep the frame rate at 240 frames per second. We're not going to speed it up. File format, we can do QuickTime. That's fine. We'll choose QuickTime, MOV. Quality will change to high. We will not remove fisheye, and we can go ahead and not remember the settings. So okay to that. The next thing is, where do you want the file to go? So you can change the directory if you'd like. I'm actually fine with where it's going, so we'll keep it there. And then the file name, 240 frames per second, car and snow -001 is fine with me. I could change this to edit 1 if I'd like, something like that. And we will go ahead and say convert all. If there were more clips you'd work with, you could have had them in this kind of this render queue almost, but we're just doing one clip, so go ahead and convert all. And GoPro Studio is now processing. And this obviously takes shorter or longer depending on how long your clip is. In this case, it's moved along pretty well. All right. So it's done converting. You can see now I can proceed to step 2. So let's go ahead and proceed to step 2. All right. Now step 2 is your editing. Now you're in the GoPro Studio's editing interface. And there's some templates you can choose, which I don't ever really use. And there's just a blank template, which is what I typically use. So, well, actually what I always use. So we'll create my blank template. And now this is sort of like your clip bin. If you're used to Premiere, this is where your clips are located in GoPro Studio. So click on that. It pops it into my timeline. Or sorry, it pops it into my preview window, which I can now play. Okay, so there that is. Now, over on the right, there are some presets you can choose if you'd like. Maybe you want to use ProTune. Maybe you shot this in ProTune on the GoPro. and you want to apply the presets for maximizing the quality of that Pro Tune footage, there's your preset for that. There's other, this is kind of like Instagram where you have these kind of, you know, various presets you can throw on your footage. I'm going to choose none. Now up here, we'll get into the speed in a second here, but you also have white balancing you can do. If you'd like, you can actually pick the color to use as your white balance. If I pick a different color, it'll make it go crazy. Yeah, let's pick the white. So that's cool. Exposure, contrast. You can boost the contrast up a bit. Maybe throw some saturation at it. You know, basic image controls. But you know, it's free, so that's not bad. All right, now let's get into the speed aspect. So let's drop this down to 20% speed. This is actually a percentage number, so 100, you can see percentage. Type in 20, and what you'll see immediately is that this enable Flux gets checked, and Flux is, if you've ever used Premiere or After Effects, they both have something called frame blending, which is how, if you slow something down really slow and you play it back and you don't have any sort of frame blending happening, not flame blending, it's choppy, so you get this sort of choppy video. And what this frame blending, or in this case Flux, attempts to do is interpolate between frames and sort of add between frames to make the footage smoother. Okay, so we'll enable Flux, and let's go ahead and play this. So you can see it slows it down, but let's go ahead and turn this back to 100%, and I'll show you how you can do some pretty cool edits in here. So let's drop this whole clip into the timeline. Okay, it's in. Now, so what you can do now is start cutting the footage and sort of isolating the spots you want to slow down. So let's go ahead and advance forward a little bit. So we would probably want all of that to be in slow motion. Okay, so let's back it up a little bit with the arrow keys. So I want all the way to there to be slow motion. So let's add a cut. So we'll cut that. And let's keep going. And now let's say I want, starting about, right about there. I want there to about there to be slow motion. Okay. So now I have these segments, right? And what I can do now is click on the segments. Let's go ahead and play it. So I want all that segment to be slow motion. So let's click on it, and we'll change the speed to 10%, or let's say 20% on that segment with Flux enabled. And then we go over to this segment, and we say, it should be 100%. I'm not really doing anything here. Let's. And then this segment, I want 20%. And then that can be full speed. So let's play this back real quick. And now you can see that I have this slow motion effect happening. And by the way, when you do slow motion in this modular way we're doing it, the audio automatically gets shut off when you add slow motion to the clip. So let's go ahead and turn the audio off on all these, because we don't really want it going back and forth. So click on the little speaker icon, and the audio gets turned off on the clips without slow motion. So let's play it. So it hits this one, speeds back up, and then it's going to hit the next clip, slow back down, right? And when it reaches the next clip, it'll speed back up. Whoa, let's try that again. Speeds back up. All right, it's a very short piece. So, you know, if you wanted to add further edits in here, you could. There's a section here where I actually get some more snow flying around. So let's say, well, let's, right here, I like the snow's flying around there. So let's add a cut there, and we'll add a cut where it stops right about there. So this section right here, I'd say, well, let's, I want this to be slow motion too. So let's click on that. 20%. Okay. We'll play it. It slows back down. Right, so you can kind of jump between fast and slow motion clips. Maybe I want this one over here to be even slower. Maybe I want it to be 10% speed. Click on that section, 10%. Not 120, sorry. 10%. Now it's even slower. Right? Super slow. Alright. So pretty cool. Now, when I'm ready to export this footage, I'm done editing it. I need to export the footage. Now with Flux enabled, the export times increase pretty dramatically. I mean, you're talking about, on this computer, it's going to take hours to export this clip or this video. But we'll go ahead and we'll set it up. So let's say export step 3. Right, there's a bunch of settings in here. There's a YouTube setting, there's a Vimeo setting. You know, it's kind of up to you to decide what you want to do. This is full HD. You can see the bitrate over here. It's pretty high. You know, Ultra HD, which is 4K. Or you're on custom settings if you want, so you can do H.264. There's your frame size, you know, whatever you want to do in here. Let's go back to YouTube. Right, so if you enable the Flux speed change, which we enabled in the timeline, we're going to enable it here as well. It says export time will be longer than usual. They're not kidding. It's a lot longer, but we'll go ahead and enable this anyway. And we'll say export. And it's going to ask where you want to put it. And let's just say test. All right. Save. So this, I'm going to cancel this, but it would sit here for quite a long time. Okay. Long time. So I'll cancel out of that, but that's how you go from, you know, bringing stuff in, editing it, cutting it up, slowing it down, and GoPro Studio 2.5. The 2.5 is important, by the way, because that's when they added Flux. So if you download GoPro Studio, make sure you get the 2.5 version so you can use the Flux feature. Let's cancel that, and we'll go into Premiere Pro. Okay, so we're in Premiere Pro, and I have the same footage, which is right here. All right. Now, Premiere Pro, in case you're not familiar with it, it's the same kind of methodology here where you bring your clips in. As I rearrange my screen here. You bring your clips in. Let's go ahead and bring one in. All right, let's do this. Sorry. Let's go to File, Import. And there's a bunch of clips in here. You bring it in. Okay. And you can start playing with it immediately. This is where I was attempting to use water. Water wasn't nearly as impressive as snow, so I kind of ditched this idea, but yeah. So Premiere, you know, obviously Premiere is not free, but it is a lot more powerful than GoPro Studio. So here's my clip I brought in. That's the 240 frames per second. Where I put that? There we go. Here. And this is the car with the snow. So let's go ahead and go through this a little bit and say, okay, well, let's find some good snow footage here. So let's mark an in. You know, we're going to go through this a little bit. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. Now, in Premiere Pro, there's basically, that I've found, there's basically 3 ways that you can slow footage down, and all 3 of them have their ups and downsides. I would say for the most amount of control over the slow motion and kind of going in and out of it and keyframing it, making it look really cool, you're going to want to use time remapping. Okay. So let's take a look at time remapping. We're going to take this clip, we'll drop it onto the new item icon here, which creates a new sequence. All right. So here is my footage using the ins and outs I marked, and we'll play it. My timeline. All right. So there it is. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, let's zoom in on this a little bit, and you're going to want to open up the V1 track by clicking over here and dragging up. And what you're looking for is both the keyframe button and then this little FX icon. Okay, so if you right click on FX and choose time remapping and then go to speed, that opens up the ability to keyframe speed on your clip. And this little line right here is actually the speed indicator. So if I click on this and I drag it down, you'll notice that it's saying, okay, well, that's percentage of speed. I can go all the way down to, say, maybe, 20%. And what's going to happen now is, obviously the audio is out of sync, so let's turn the audio off. I'm muting it, and I'll play this back. Let's go full screen. Right. So it's 20% speed. But suppose you wanted to keyframe kind of the fast to slow motion, and you wanted to interpolate the blending from slow to fast motion and kind of have it going in and out in a smooth way. That's something that GoPro Studio cannot do. It cannot sort of keyframe that motion from fast to slow motion. So let's go ahead and we'll undo that speed, and then we'll go ahead and let's start adding some keyframes. So let's find where it starts to really look cool. Actually, the beginning's pretty cool, so we'll let that go. And then from, let's say, here to here, let's keyframe that. So this is the add new keyframe. Let's zoom in a bit. And keep going there. There we go. Add a keyframe there, and then looks like something cool happens here, so we'll isolate that area. Alright, add a keyframe there. So what I'm able to do now is, at the beginning, that's good stuff. So let's keyframe that. Let's go ahead and slow just this section down. There's a keyframe here. It's saying, okay, from here to this keyframe, I can drag this down. And let's go down to about, let's say 20%-ish. There you go. So now you can see from the beginning until that keyframe, that's all 20% speed. Right? And when it reaches that keyframe, it jumps back to 100% speed. Now you might be saying, well, the GoPro Studio software did the same thing. Yeah, but let's zoom in right here, and you see these two little handles right here. That's where you can adjust the transition from slow to fast motion. So let's click on one of these little handles and drag it out. And now you can see this bar represents, okay, now I'm kind of slowly going from slow to fast motion. Let's zoom back out a bit and really get that. Let's make a really dramatic leap, so it's really a long transition. Like a really long transition. And then you'll notice as well, there's a little handle. Let's click in between these. And there's a little handle. That little handle is what you call a Bezier curve selector. So you can click on that, and you can sort of adjust. You can go. Let's zoom in more so you can see it. Do you want more of a abrupt change, or do you want a smooth change? And that's what that's doing there. So the more S-curve looking thing, that's a more smooth change, and the sharp angled, that's a fast change. So it jumps from slow to fast immediately, or you can do a more slow change. Maybe if we play it. It's a nice smooth transition. And you can continue to do that as you go through your timeline. Just find your keyframes, zoom in, and just drag these handles out. And oops, I didn't slow this section down, so let's slow it down. Let's go to like 10%. Okay, there we go. And then we'll smooth out that transition to slow motion. We'll go really far. We'll make that nice and smooth. So in this case, it's going to go regular speed to slow motion. And a nice transition. Okay. Now, GoPro Studio had that Flux feature. And there's a sort of a Flux feature in Premiere Pro as well. And in this case, it's called frame blending. So if you right-click on your clip in the timeline and choose frame blend, that's going to do the same type of effect as the frame blend, or as the Flux feature, where it sort of blends frames together that might be kind of choppy. So you may not need it. In this case, this was 240 frames per second, so that's a lot of frames to work with. So I may not even need frame blending. But if you do find your footage being choppy and kind of, chunky looking, frame blending is a nice option. If you want to see the footage playback rendered, you have to click Enter on the keyboard. So if I push Enter, it goes ahead and renders the frames out that it needs to render out. There you go. There's some good snow throwing happening there. Slow motion. Alright, so that's method 1. And that's with keyframing and time remapping and all that good stuff. Method 2 is to... It's a little bit weird, but you have to create a new timeline. So let's take my footage again. And we'll do a different section this time. Let's do, say here. Something like that. Drag this down, create a new timeline. There we go. Okay, so if I click on my sequence, go to Sequence Settings, and let's change the time base to 24 frames per second. Okay. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change the speed of the clip in the timeline, but the way we're going to have to do that is to divide the frame rate of the clip by the frame rate of the sequence. So in other words, it would be 24 divided by 240. So let's open up the, let's go to the calculator and figure out what that is. So 24 divided by 240 is 0.1, so 10% speed. Let's do that. So let's right click on the clip in the timeline, go to speed, and we'll change that to 10%. Okay. So if I play this, it's pretty smooth right off the bat. And the other cool thing about this method is that it also adjusts the audio. So if you wanted your audio to match the speed of the video, it's there for you. So that's pretty cool. So that's method 2. So it's basically just slowing down the clip within the timeline and making the timeline 24p timeline. Now the last method is to actually reinterpret the footage in your bin to a different frame rate. So let's take this clip right here, and before we do this, I'm going to duplicate it, and that way I have a copy of the original in its regular frame rate. So we'll go ahead and right click and say duplicate. Okay. And now what we're going to do is right click on this and go to modify, interpret footage. And now we can adjust the frame rate to a different frame rate. So let's change this to 24 frames per second, okay? Now if I play it, you can see it's already slow motion. The whole thing. And the audio went with it as well. So you can look at these sections here. You know, it's already slow motion. So if I drop this into a sequence, that sequence is already slow motion. Right, so it's already ready to go. So that's method 3. And again, you know, you can go back to original footage if you need to because you made a copy of it. There's the original. And then here's the slow motion version. Now, one more advantage that Premiere Pro has over GoPro Studio is the export time. You know, if I take, let's say I take this clip, or even this one, which is a little longer. You know, let's find the one that has keyframes in it, which is around 45 seconds long. And I tell Premiere to go ahead and export this. And let's choose H.264. We'll choose one of these presets here. Let's say YouTube 720p HD. No audio. And let's just we'll just call this test 2 and export. So what was going to take GoPro Studio hours is going to take Premiere Pro minutes. So yeah, that's way faster. Okay, so that's about it for the 3 methods I found in Premiere Pro for slowing down footage, as well as using GoPro Studio 2.5. So I hope this helped you guys.